The Curses and the Covenants, A History Weaver Mystery, Book 2, by Connie Worden. Read by the author. Chapter 34. On the Monday after the funeral, Sarah showed up at school and found me in my office working on a neglected lesson plan for the week of English classes. "Hey, sorry I didn't get to talk to you at the funeral," she told me. "How have you been handling things?" I sighed. So much for lesson planning. But talking to Sarah was more important at the moment. "I've been okay," I told her sincerely. "How have you been?" "I don't know," she said, perching on the edge of my desk and toying with an ornament that was a gift from a student which I kept on my desk. "Not so hot?" "Hot is definitely not how I'd describe it," she agreed. "Yeah, might take a while to start being hot again." She smiled wanly. "I hope we're not talking about my appearance," she quipped. "Obviously not." "Anyway, I wanted to ask you if you knew any more about the body they discovered under the rock pile." "I haven't heard anything else. I think it'll be made public if there's any news on it." "No identification of the body, then?" "Not that I've heard." "I just wondered. I thought dental records might go faster." "I think it takes a while. They probably have a lot of files to examine, I'm guessing." "Yeah, I suppose so," Sarah said, still fidgeting. "Anyway, I was in town, so I thought I'd just check in with you," she finished. "See how you've been doing. How's Aunt Evangelina?" "Ma's good, cranky as ever." "She is not. She never is." "Well, crusty, is that the word?" "Salty, maybe." "Yup, she's full of flavor, whatever that flavor is. Not sweet, exactly. Not sour. Not bitter. I think salty's her taste." Sarah managed a small chuckle. "She makes me laugh anyway. I could use a laugh. I should go say hi after I visit my parents." "You should. Stop by this evening. Come for dinner if your mom isn't expecting you, or come and bring your parents." "Maybe I will. I was supposed to catch up with Pete today sometime too, though." "Oh, well, if you don't have time," I said coldly. "I'll make time," she said with sudden decision. "I'll go find Pete soon as I leave here." "Okay, well, see you tonight. I'm cooking." "See you tonight." She waved and was out the door. November 25th, 1898. There is not much news to report to you, my dear diary, but the days are falling into a regular rhythm now. I have found that I can be of some use to the doctor, having some aptitude for nursing, and feeling quite well now, and with my confinement months away. Winter is well underway. There is almost a foot of snow on the ground already. Joshua makes his rounds by horse-drawn sleigh instead of his buggy, and I often accompany him if he is on a call where he feels I would be useful. We have even made a trip to Beaver Row to serve the settlement there with any of their health needs. Fortunately, diphtheria seems to have finished making its rounds, and only 5 lives were lost to it. That is, of course, 5 too many. But considering conditions in the homes of the miners and their families, it could have been so much worse. Joshua has me giving little classes to the ladies on basic hygiene and health. I find I enjoy the teaching and the time with the ladies. I've also been able to see my native friends and teach them the most basic disease prevention as well, as they often have no immunity for the sicknesses the Europeans bring with them to their midst, as we do. We have no desire to see another disease such as smallpox ravage their population. Then, when in Beaver Row we went to check on my little homestead and see that the house was still standing and unharmed, I was able to gather a few little things that I hadn't taken with me on our first trip. I thought for my Christmas in Penhurst I might want the little animal nativity scene all carved. It holds bittersweet memories. I had put it away in its box and refused to look at it after little Ollie's death. The new baby will someday treasure it, however, I'm sure, and I am able to enjoy the sight of it again. I also took back the cradle with me to Penhurst. I hadn't done anything with it, not knowing what best to do, but I decided to take it in preparation for baby's birth. All in all, my days are full and useful and purposeful, and I feel myself almost quite happy again. A state I never thought would be possible a few short months ago. though never having little Ollie and all far from my mind for long. The memory no longer presses on me with the unendurable sadness when I think of them, and that is great improvement. With everything going on with Julia, I hadn't seen Uncle Jim and Auntie Donna in quite some time. It was good to see their faces around the dinner table. Dinner was only a simple frozen beef stew I'd put in the crock pot that morning, but I'd made some fresh flatbread after school to go along with it. It wouldn't have mattered what we ate. It was wonderful to be together around the table for a change. I was feeling tenderly sentimental that night. Maybe it was Ma's stroke. Maybe it was Julia's death. Maybe it was my new spiritual awakening. Maybe it was all those things. Life suddenly seemed full and rich. I couldn't help noticing that Sarah seemed on edge, however, even more so than when I'd seen her in my office that afternoon. I wondered if it had been her meeting with Pete that had upset her. I asked her to help me serve dessert, and as we plated the cheesecake I'd picked up at the grocer's after work and scooped blueberry compote onto it, I asked her, "Did you have a good time with Pete?" "Not really," she said shortly. "Just socializing?" I probed. As nosy as Sarah was, she should be able to take it as well as dish it. "No, it was about Julia." "Any news you can tell me that way?" "I don't know. I suppose it doesn't matter. He wanted to let me know that in light of her death, her allegations about abuse are being considered again." "Oh!" I was stunned into silence. "Not necessarily with any of the ones they've already investigated. Not her father, or George, or the neighbor boy. They all seem to be in the clear. It's just a possibility that she was using them as scapegoats, because she didn't want to reveal the real culprit, that's all. Pete wanted to talk to me about any suspicions I may have possibly had of anyone else in Julia's life." "Did you?" "No, I really can't say that I did. Who knows, it could be the most unlikely person. You know how that goes." "Yeah, it's so hard to really know people. Even people you've known for a long, long time." "Right." Sarah went silent. "I don't imagine there will be any way to learn whoever may have been the real abuser, if anyone. Now that Julia's gone, why is this being brought up again now?" Sarah gave her characteristic shrug. "There's just so much mystery still surrounding Julia and her death and the discovery of the other body. She was such a mess that the likely assumption is abuse somewhere down the line. It's always the go-to theory when a girl has as many problems as Julia did." "I can see that, but there can be so many things that can cause people problems. I mean, she was being medicated for who knows what. More than one mental illness, I believe, definitely depression. Even schizophrenia, her mom told me." Sarah shrugged again and walked off toward the dining room with 2 pieces of blueberry cheesecake. "Well, time will tell, or maybe it won't. Some questions might never be answered," she said quickly as we rejoined the others. It was the exact same cluster of people who had been around the dining room table that night, who were around it the next day when I walked into the house after school. Instead of the smiling, relaxed looks they'd worn the night before, however, everyone, except Uncle Jim, who was dry-eyed but stricken, had been very visibly crying. Sarah was still sobbing with great gulping gasps. What's happened?" I said, not very calmly, I'm afraid, dropping my book bag on the floor where I'd entered and rushing to the table. "They know who the dead man is," Ma said, looking at me out of the corner of her eyes, using the simple language she had access to. "You mean they've identified the body? Of the man under the rock pile? So what's wrong? Who is it?" "It's Danny," Uncle Jim said quietly. "Danny?" "Your cousin." Yes, I knew who Danny was. I just couldn't take it in all at once. "Dental records," Ma explained. "Danny?" I said again, very unhelpfully. Sarah went off in a fresh gale of weeping. It didn't matter that Danny had obviously died years ago. To his family, just learning about it, the grief was as fresh as if they'd lost him just today, which in a sense they had. "Danny?" I couldn't seem to stop parroting his name like a broken record. "Stop it, Angie," I scolded myself. and then reminded myself that I was allowed my own share of shock and grief. I needed to cut myself some slack too, and not expect perfectly rational behavior for a minute or two. "I'm so sorry," I finally said, awkwardly going to side hug Sarah, who accepted the hug without any noticeable return of it. "But how? I thought, there's no chance it's all a mistake?" Sarah had calmed enough to form sentences by this point. "I know. I thought I saw him in East Hastings on the street corner not long ago. I guess I imagined it." In spite of his family sitting around the table, it was almost impossible for me to avoid speculating and questioning aloud. What would have brought him back from Vancouver to Beaver Row, I wonder? Do you think he tried to come home after he got kicked out of his apartment in the city? Auntie Donna's face distorted, and she looked down at her hands in her lap. "How long ago do they think that I asked. "Impossible to be sure," Uncle Jim said. "They can't get exact figures at this late date, but forensics is estimating his age when he died as 18, and his time of death is very shortly after he went missing. Based on decomposition and all that, it was 15 years since we last saw him. When I told the officers that, they told me that would be about right for the approximate time the body's been there." "Very shortly? Is that why he went missing, do you think?" "You mean, did he even leave Beaver Row at all?" Uncle Jim put in. "I've been asking myself that." "Oh, but of course he did," I remembered. "Sarah got those text messages from him saying he'd gone to Vancouver. Months after even, right, Sarah?" "Yes, of course, that's right," Uncle Jim agreed. "Unless there was nothing unusual about them, was there, Sarah? I mean, they definitely were from Danny. They couldn't have been from someone else who got hold of his phone somehow." "You remember, Dad, I showed them to you. They were definitely from his number. I couldn't be positive they were from him. There wasn't anything in them that would rule them out as being from someone else. Pretty generic messages. Of course, we all just assumed they were from Danny, being from his phone." "It is funny. I don't mean funny exactly, but you know what I mean. That the police were never able to get any trace of him," Auntie Donna interjected. "I mean that there was no use on his bank card, no accessing the money in his bank account after he disappeared." "Well, that's true," Uncle Jim stated. "That does almost suggest that he didn't make it to Vancouver." "Do they have a cause of death?" I asked. "In layman's terms, he had a bashed-in skull and multiple other fractures, including a broken neck. The head injury alone would have done it," Uncle Jim said. Do they think he was beaten to death?" "His injuries were consistent with a fall from the bridge," Uncle Jim said clinically, obviously quoting what he'd been told. "So, a fall from the bridge? Who could have pushed him? Who would have wanted Danny dead?" I was saying all sorts of untactful things, I knew, but I couldn't seem to stop. Sarah had finally calmed down, only for me to set her off again. Aunt Donna joined her, crying more quietly into a tissue. "If it was a fall, it could have been accidental, or self-inflicted," Uncle Jim said, mincing his words. "There had to be someone else involved," I said. "Danny didn't pile stones on top of his own body." Even Uncle Jim winced as I pointed out the obvious. "We know he'd gotten into drugs," he said defeatedly. "That has a way of turning dangerous. You put yourself into the power of ruthless people with that lifestyle." He blew his nose loudly after this admission. He exhaled in a deep sigh. "I just don't know what to think, crew. Only time will tell." He rose to his feet. "Well, ladies, we should be on our way. We just didn't want you to hear it from the media first. Thought we'd better beat them to the punch." "Can't you stay for dinner, Uncle Jim? Auntie Donna?" I asked. "I can whip something up. I'm sure you don't feel like cooking." Auntie Donna shook her head. "I don't know about anyone else, but I'm not going to be able to eat dinner." "Oh, please stay. You should try. You never know what might help until you try. You might feel better if you get a little food in you. Have you had anything all day?" She shook her head again. "Well, that settles it. If you're going home to no dinner, you've got to stay. I'll fix something." "I think we feel like being alone as just the three of us," Uncle Jim said. I'll make sure they eat something, don't you worry. I don't plan to starve, and I won't let the girls starve either. They all got up to leave, and Sarah said, I'm taking some time off work so I can be here for the folks, so I'll make sure they're looked after. We'll look after each other, I mean. I'll stay as long as I'm needed. Thanks, Sarah, I said. We want to help look after you all too. I know everyone says it, and it never ends up happening, but please, please let us know if there's anything we can do. And you too, Uncle Jim said. You might need some helping out too. We'll look out for each other, okay, kiddo? Okay, Uncle Jim. I gave him the tightest squeeze I could on his way out the door.